This is gonna be a yeah. So I'm pretty much like maintaining one of my plugins, and yesterday I released a new version for this widget context. And what it does is basically allows you to hide and show widgets depending on certain rules. If you look at the screenshot here, this one here. So basically under each widget you get this additional set of settings, and you can either show unselected or hide unselected toggles here. So you have global selections like the template tags, and then the most kind of the flexible and most used feature is this target by URL. This is something inspired by the Drupal blocks. I think like 10 years ago is when I used that, or more. And basically in this new version I released an update which also added exclude by URL. So if you used something like this category piece and then the wildcard symbol at the end, but you wanted to exclude for example on a one subcategory of that piece, top level category, then you could just add it here. Yeah, so basically that's what the release was about. And then a user reported a problem where if they're using wildcard captures, so let me just show you here, this is the actual widgetcontext.com website. So if you go to the widgets, I don't think I have any. Okay, so let's go to the customizer so that I can quickly kind of prototype this. And it's like the archives widget. So show on selected. And now what the user said is that if you have a wildcard for the query parameter, like this, then if this is actually in the query URL, in the URL, that this is not going to work. So I'm going to show you how I'm going to approach fixing this, or at least verifying that this is indeed replicable. So what I'm doing first is I'm opening up the source code of the plugin, and it has unit tests actually. And because the way the code is written, at least the newly added code, it can be tested without having to run the full WordPress instance. So for example, this URL matcher is actually a separate class, which pretty much doesn't even care about WordPress in there. So you pass it a list of URL fragments, and then the rules and a rule against which it has to match. So this is the URI against that we're matching. This would be the current URL, for example, of a site, just the path segment plus the query parameters. So something like WordPress.com, and this is the path to page with query parameter. So this URI would be this path to page with everything in here, and then the rules is just an array of all these target by URL fragments. So you can have multiple things here. For example, about or about all sub pages as well. I have this pro page as well now. So these are all split on the line endings and passed to that as the second argument. So, and yeah, as you see, there's like no dependency on WordPress itself. So that's really cool. So that means that we can actually write tests and for this in isolation. And what I have here is the test for URL wildcards. So it's gonna check that the sub page of a page is matched by this wildcard. That the slugs, right, are matched, and prefix is matched as well, so everything before it, yeah, all kinds of that. So, and what I decided to do is pretty much introduce a new test. So this one particular was special because it used wildcards with query strings. So I don't think I've tested that before, and it was this category. So this would be the request URL on a site. So you're filtering products by a certain filter. what you want to do is you want to check for the presence of that filter. If the brand filter is on, you want to either hide or show that widget. So what I wrote here is that assert true. So now this function, when I call it, should return true, saying that this rule, which has been added here, one of them, should return true, as in matching, in case of this request URL or URI. So now when this test has been added, I'm gonna run the test suite and see that actually one of the tests fails, and it is exactly the test that I added. So now I can start working. I mean, this is pretty much like test-driven development, but it really is helpful when you get a report from a user, a bug report, and then you can actually write a test to replicate it and see it fails, so you can actually confirm that it's actually not working. So what I'm going to do now, I'm just going to look at the actual code that tries to do the matching. So this is the code here, and there's something very specific where we're trying to ignore the query parameter in the request URI if none of the rules actually are matched against the query string. So I'm thinking maybe this is something to do with it, so that this returns something, and then this basically, what this here does is, if you have a URL like example.com, let's just do the path section, because this is what pass to something, and then query param. Then after this is done, it's gonna leave in just this part, so it's gonna disregard everything after and including the question mark, which is the separator for the query parameters in the URL. So that's what it does here. There's probably a reason for why I added this. There are a lot of edge cases with these URL patterns. So one way of kind of dealing with this is I'm gonna comment out this where it removes the thing and see if it still passes. Now it's actually, so that test now passes and a different test is now failing. So it is indeed this kind of logic here that is responsible for that specific behavior. So let's see why I'm trying to remove the query path actually in this special case. So test URL special. Interesting. Okay, it's down here. So this is the URL that is incoming, and the rule is set to match campaigns with the trailing slash. And now, because this rule in the widget settings doesn't actually match against the query parameters, we're gonna match it. So disregard this part here. So this is interesting. Okay. It's just, I guess we're trying to be helpful for situations when let's add a comment here. Disregard things like UTM source and other tracking parameters. Yeah, so I think that's where I was trying to be helpful to people. So is that if somebody has excluded a page, like a widget from showing up on example page, but the user is actually on example page UTM source like Twitter, and if you had the rule to show something on example page, right, or hide it, this wouldn't work as a direct match, because there is this query parameter. So we have to strip it away and do the match against this just the path section, and then it is a match. So that's what I was trying to help users with here, which I think is a good addition. So I mean, yeah, why not? So, and now this is failing, yeah, because it's not removing that thing. Okay, so I think the removal part is behaving correctly. The question is, why does it remove it? So in this case, it was removing. It was removing, so this one was failing. But it is removing it also. It appears to be removing it during this here. So let's look at, I mean, I could enable the Xdebug for this, but let's just var them here. No, not this. So we're going to be tracking it for a bit. So the automotive, but the wildcard test was what? Is like this brand filter. So the brand filter, where is that one? Page starts with another page. What? Oh, it's stripping away. Exactly, so it's stripping that way. So I'm not even seeing it. Let's dump both the path and the rules, because the rules are gonna contain, yeah, so here, this is the path, and this is now the rule, and because it thinks that the rule doesn't have a query string, right, because it doesn't. So how does that work? This is gonna use, yeah, it looks at the, oh, okay, so it's like matching against the query string. So actually, to make this work, this would have to be like this. What about now? So let's see. No, yeah, okay, that's better. So in reality, what we should be saying to people is you have to add, if you want to filter by the query parameters, just add them in a single line. I mean, it could be that you need it on a specific URL. So it could be like, yeah, let's do it this way. Would it still pass? No, it doesn't, because obviously there's something before that. So that's fair. How about this now? Still failing. Yeah, and that wrapping thing. Oh, it's gonna be because of like when it normalizes it, it's actually this. No, I don't know. But anyway, so yeah, it doesn't recognize that as a query parameter. At the same time, I don't think you can have like an equal sign. Can you have an equal sign? So the thinking is like, what if instead of looking for this, where was that matcher thing? So what if instead of using this one, we looked at the equal sign? That sounds like a good idea. So URI equals sign. Yeah. Can there be, so URI path content equal, well, what is it? Equality sign. Anyway, this is the path now. What can the path contain? The path component map exactly the file system path equal sign in URI path. Yeah, so I think, I mean, it would be a crazy edge case where somebody had an equal sign in the like in the path. So like, let's leave a comment here. So assume that equal signs are only used for query parameters. No, I mean, assume that only paths with equal signs, so only query parameters can contain equal signs. Okay, so now if there's an equal sign, then this is gonna assume that it has a query string. So that's cool. So I think this should fix it. So yeah, that fixed it. So the tests are passing. Now if we look at this one here, the user had the wildcard there. What was strange that I saw there was that it didn't want to match on like with the trailing slash at the URL end. So let's reduce this one to something very small. Right, so this second one had actually, so well, let's like this, and then as a user they would write something like this. That's a fair rule, because they only want it on this particular product category. Then they're adding the question mark, but they could not, I mean, they could avoid it. Well, this one is gonna fail, so let's see why that happens. So this is because the trailing slash, and that's when we normalize the path, we strip away the trailing slash. So why don't we strip away it at the, that's interesting. So the parser that we're using for normalizing the request path is the same that we're using for normalizing the request rule, so the matcher rule. Right, so it looks like essentially, no, I mean, so if this one didn't have the query path and also had this one, would that work? Nope, that doesn't work because the rule has the trailing slash. Still don't understand it. Why does it? That's interesting. So query strings with wildcards. So this is going to be another test that we need to fix. Ignores trailing slashes. Ignore trailing slashes on rule paths. Let's add something. So this should work, right? If you're filtering just by that path. So this is a realistic match, because it is an actual match. So I'm not sure how that could not work. Okay. Slash path. So, okay, cool. Now let's look at where this could fail. This is failing at the normalizer. Let's put back the bar dumps. And it runs the test and see what happens. So here we are. This is that other rule. This is the path. Okay. Your rules are not formatted. That's interesting. So let's look at the formatted versions of those rules. I wonder if that will have scrapped something away. Yeah, okay. You see it does this thing where it removes the trailing slash before the query parameter, but not on the path. So this is where the path is. And what was the other one? Yeah, that's the thing, and then this is the rule. So this one hasn't had the trailing slash removed, while the rule has. And that it looks to me that this path is not being normalized the same way as everything in here. Which is strange, because this also passes through where it like does the path from URI. So let's see, match path. So every time we call the match path, we're getting it from the get request path. And the get request path is a helper that just deals with the request URI, and it passes it through the path from URI. This is interesting. And here in the path section, we are trimming the trailing slash. And now I'm completely lost why that is not happening. So we should actually be adding tests for this baby. So this helper is public, and do we have any tests for that? We have. So the resolver, yeah, so let's add a test where we make it fail. So it looks to me that this is not being so this is the incoming. What we would expect to happen is this, right? So let's see how that fails. Yeah, test with wildcards. And where's the path resolver? No, what? Is that he's saying it actually does work? Okay. That's strange. So let's add a comment here. Normalize the trailing slash to nothing. Normalize the path by removing the trailing slash. Okay, and he's saying that this is now passing? Yeah, that only the target URL test is failing, so that's the previous one. That's interesting. Okay. So it is actually removing it, but for some reason it wasn't there. So let's see what is this called again? Get request path. And the URI does include everything, so this should include that. Get request path is normalized here. Let's see where else we're calling the match path. And this one here, path is normalized. Get request path, get request path. I don't understand in that case. How is that not removing it? So here it's being removed. And this input one doesn't have it removed. What is that? Which one is that? It's the, yeah, it's this one here. Oh wait, yeah, because this one is expected to have already removed it. So that makes sense. You see, so when the path reaches this, the matcher, it has already been sanitized when it got from the get request path. So we are really, like, this matcher expects that to be normalized. So that's fine. So that's a valid case. Okay, that's cool. So if we change that back to this, where it is gonna, well, this is gonna get normalized. Okay, so this one has to be without it. Yeah, and then it passes. Okay. I mean, we could still normalize it again here. I wonder. Yeah, because this one does the normalization on the URIs, but then, well, anyway, let's not introduce a lot too much of this, but yeah, well, at least the wildcards on the front work, so that's fine. Okay. So now the test is passing, so that means we can actually get this committed. So let's see, what do we have here? So we're checking on this. So let's add it in here. I'm gonna literally copy this as a commit message, right? So we staged that one change separately. It's gonna run the unit test for every commit. It's actually running on a pre-commit hook. So if you look at the composer, I think it is at the composer level. Are we using the Husky? Husky pre-commit, yeah, it's actually the Husky. So in package.json, we're pulling in this Husky package, which does, basically it checks any of the scripts. This is the old version where it used the script section in the package for any hook, git hook like named commands, and then it runs them. So this one is on a pre-commit, and this is post-install. So it does the linter and then also the test. So you cannot commit like failing code that fails the unit tests and the linter. So that's really kind of helpful. And that's why it sometimes takes a bit more time, but at least you're not committing code that is broken, which is the whole purpose of this. So that's really cool. Let's see, what else do we have? This one here. Yeah. So I guess we can commit the tests in one go. Test to cover the wildcard plus query param combos, right? So that's that. Now, some coffee. Wow, that was too fast. Okay, let's push this up. Now onto the GitHub. There is our feature branch. So the core of that fix involved removing the, let's look, visibility, yeah, that's fine. Okay, yeah, this was the core fix. So if you find fix query path matcher, fix matcher path matcher for your guys with query params. Use equal sign instead of for detecting the presence of query parameters in path. Add unit tests to confirm that. Okay. Now this is to the develop branch. So this is the, out of that one I create the releases. Oops, sorry. I should have. It's really tiny screen when you're recording at the 720p. Okay, the tests are there, the comments, extra comments are there as well. This looks good. Now the Travis is gonna do its thing. What we have here is inside that repo, you see here the source is this .travis YAML file. And it's basically like a configuration-based file for continuous integration runners. You tell it to do certain things. So you say this is a actually this is wrong. It should be just one language, but fine, okay. It has Node running on it. It has different versions of PHP, and it's going to run the same instructions that are here in the script and install with each version of PHP here. So it does npm install to install all dependencies, including the composer dependencies on a script. Then it lints, then it tests, and it also does the mess detector, which I don't run locally, and it's also kind of ignoring the violations. This is more for kind of informational purposes only. So this is when Travis, if you have the Travis integration for your repository configured, that file is going to be automatically discovered, and Travis is going to run. You can configure it to run on pull requests, on branches. So every time you push something to a branch, actually does that. So here you can see this is for the path matcher. It ran on 3 different versions of PHP. Surprisingly, which one was the fastest? Yeah, oh yeah, 7.2. Okay, but anyway, they're pretty close to each other. And you can see here that it runs the PHP unit tests. The linter as well here. It also verifies the composer file, the syntax of it, so that it's correct. And then the mess detector, it finds all kinds of things, but we're gonna fix, this is legacy plugin. So I added the mess detector after it had been written. So I haven't gotten to fixing all these warnings and issues. Some of them are like style things, right? So that's fine. It's not like impacting the functionality. Okay, so the test has passed. Sorry. So let's go back to that pull request. Where was that? Come on, I want the pull request. Thank you. So that looks good to me. I think this is ready to be merged. So let's merge this one in. I think I had configured to delete branches automatically. Nope. Okay, that's strange. Let's do it. So the idea is that if you don't configure that, you're gonna have a lot of merged branches in there. So automatically delete head branches, and that's that. Use counter. Wow, okay, so this recognizes this as a repository. That's interesting. Okay, cool. Now that's that. Now what we have to do is open another pull request from, actually we have to do a branch. So now that this has been merged, let's, yeah, that has been merged. So let's go to develop. Let's sync this up with the local, and then we can do create new branch. This is going to be a release because we're releasing a bug fix. So this is 1.3.1, I believe, from develop. Cool, and this is going to be to master. So whenever we're developing features, we're merging them to develop as they pass the tests and they've been verified. And once we're kind of to a point where we want to do a release, everything that has been merged into the develop at that until then now gets added to this release branch. So while we're at it, and this release branch now is going to be used for me only for things like updating the Readme files. So the Readme file is actually using a dynamically generated version. So I believe the only place where I have to update that is in the root of the plugin. So 1.3.1, and then in the Readme template for the repository, I have a changelog as well. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna add a new entry here for it's 1 day after I might release this thing yesterday. Bug fix. Allow, enable, what was it? So essentially, better support for URL rules with query parameters. So that's that. That's the only change, right? We've identified that it's a bug fix, so whoever installs it, they're gonna see it as that. Before installing it, and they pull up the changelog. So that's cool. The version has been updated in that place. I don't think I have anything else. Normally on other plugins I have like a checklist for the release things, but this I think is sufficient for now. So I'm gonna wrap these in like in a single commit. It's bump version and add the changelog. Oh, that's cool. So it runs the tests and the linter again, which is cool. Now I'm gonna sync it up to the GitHub. And there you go. Now where's the branch? Yeah, cool. Whoops. And now this has to be to master. Okay. And we're really mentioning this pull request. That's the only change in there. Number 62, right? That's cool. Let's open pull request so that it can run the tests again. The changelog is there. The rule for using the equal sign is there. The additional tests are there. And the version bump is there as well. So that looks sufficient. So what I'm gonna do while it runs that thing is I'm gonna create a new release here on GitHub, because we have users pulling in this plugin via Composer, and the way the Composer packages work is you so on packages you go here. These are widget context. Yep. So the way it works, you pass in the GitHub repository, and now this packages service is going to resolve the Composer file in this repository, and for the versions, it's going to look at the release, at the tagged releases, or essentially tags on GitHub as they are. So what we want to do now is we want to draft a new release from the current master. Well, it's going to be the master once we merge the release branch in, right? So it's 1.3.1. And then again, we have to replicate what it was in this here. So that's the only change, right? So save draft. I've clicked the publish release so many times before. So that has been drafted. Now you see it's a draft. It hasn't actually added that tag. It just says that it's gonna do it. So this one passed. That's cool. And we can merge this in, because that's it. So now this is on master. You see that the branch got deleted automatically. That's just really cool. And then yeah, let's switch to the master branch. That's where we have it. So that's really cool. Now this is in master, so we can now publish the release. 1.3.1. That's cool. So let's hit the publish release button, and that should do it. Should tag the release from the master. Okay, cool. Now this is done. You can see now that this is the release. Between that one and this one, it's actually 5 commits. So it's just another chance for us to verify that this is what we wanted and fix something that is necessary. And now we can get to releasing it to the .org repository. So, and that one is, again, it's simple. Everything that's needed for that is bundled with the plugin repository. You see that the GitHub repo now sees 5 commits to master. I also did the git pull, so it fetches in the tags and everything. And now I have a script that is pretty much deploy. Now this is, I need a password. I think I'll need a password for WordPress.org. Yeah, so let's see what it gets. So it does all its thing. Why did it copy that many files? That's wrong. That's very wrong. Okay, so we don't want to do this. This is something not correct. This was the deploy script. We actually want to run grunt deploy. But before it does that, we actually need to package this. And this is part of the Composer thing. So it should have done the release. That's strange. Oh, okay. So in reality, we actually have build. Yeah, this deploy thing had to do the build step before. But let's do it manually. So it's removing the development dependencies. So everything that was used for linting, for PHP unit tests and everything. And now it's only 9 directories and 23 files in the dist directory here. You see it leaves the Composer files in, the license file, the Readme file is converted, the screenshots, and then the main plugin file. And then the vendor directory only contains the autoloader. And autoloader, it pretty much uses the PSR4 for these new things that I've added here. So it's very straightforward. Now we can do the run deploy. Now that's gonna, this is using another package actually. And so this is gonna essentially do a SVN commit. And that's it. And because this is a tracking trunk, I believe, instead of the tag, it's also do a commit to trunk and separate deploy of the assets to the assets directory. So yeah, so it got the password on the keychain. That's cool, and the new version is out. So if we go here to the widget context, it should be oh, it did fail. Oh, the coverage. Ah, the coverage fell. That's bad. Okay. Not a big issue. Now, anyway, yeah, so widget context. Now, if we go to the WordPress forums for this, we can see here that it is at 29 seconds ago, version 3.1. So what we can do now is reply back to the original poster of the question in the support forum, saying that we fixed the issue in version point that. So that should work fine. We can ask them to test this. So be fixed in version, which I released just a few minutes ago. Could you please test it? Cool. Now I've asked the user to test this, and that's how you release a bug fix. We can also have, so the widget context plugin there, it does have a local development environment in there. I'm not sure if it started, but yeah, so it's like a Docker container running in Vagrant. Oh yeah, it requires development dependencies, so I have to install those again. Because that pulls in the Vagrant file, like the container for that Docker thing in there. Now when that's done, you can run the compose Vagrant reload, or Vagrant up or down. And that should start the virtual machine that then starts the Docker containers inside it. So it basically isolates the Docker requirements from your host machine, and your host machine really needs the VirtualBox and Vagrant. So that's that. Yeah. So anyway, that's the way to kind of deal with this. Now, one other thing is that the plugin has been released, so I can update it actually on my own sites. So this is a network of many sites, and yeah, the update should have propagated here as well. So network update, dashboard, updates. There you go. So version 3.1 is out. You can see, click on the details, and you see our changelog that we just added. So that's really cool, and we can install the update. And that's it. So the plugin has been updated. It's going to roll out to every user that's using Widget Context. So thank you for watching. I'm really happy I could kind of finally do this video where I show you everything that kind of is involved in maintaining a WordPress plugin. Yeah, let me know if it was useful, and if you have any questions about any of the workflows or things. I didn't really go into the details, so some of that might be a bit complicated or maybe too easy for anyone who has done this before already. So yeah, any feedback is much appreciated, and have a great day.